What up, y'all? It's your boy Bando's in the building. All love and no trust, ALANT, full throttle, the brand, the label, and the motto. We here doing reaction videos. You know what I mean? This is the first one we got, and we're going to start out strong. This video here is about whether or not you can shoot back at the cops. You know what I mean? And so we got this little lawyer dude. He going to let us know what it is, and we're going to jump right into it. So let's get it.
Count those shots. Those were approximately 40 rounds fired by two Harris County Sheriff's deputies through a window and a door into an apartment where a woman was standing doing absolutely nothing wrong. Her name is Ezy10Bandz. She was shot 5 times. She now has permanent nerve damage, she has drop foot, and she has psychological trauma that will follow her the rest of her life.
Wait. I thought this was going to ask us if we could shoot. They done shot this lady 40 times. They shot her 5 times. First off, they busted 40 rounds. Did they even knock on the door? Busted 40 rounds in her house. I didn't even hear about this on the news. What is this, recent?
And the worst part is, she never even knew that it was the
I'm busting back. I'm shooting back. 40 round. You don't even need the answer to that. I'm busting.
cops on the other side of the door. Now this video blew up all over the internet for millions of views, and the number one question that everyone was asking in the comments is, can she shoot back at the cops when they are unlawfully shooting at her? I'm Jeff Hampton, the People's Lawyer, and in this video I'm going to break down, can you shoot back at cops if they are unlawfully shooting at you? And I'm going to warn you, stick around to the end, the answer is not what you think. Let me take you back to February 3rd, 2024. It's 2 a.m. in the morning in Harris County, Texas. Ezy10Bandz is inside her friend LaRonda Berry's apartment. She's not breaking in, she's not trespassing, she's a guest. She's supposed to be there. Now here's what kicked this whole thing off. LaRonda locked herself out of her apartment. So she did what a lot of people do. She broke the window on her apartment. Her window. Her property. Of course, as you would know it, a neighbor sees what she's doing, doesn't know the context of what's going on, so she calls 911 to report a burglary. Suddenly, 2 Harris County Sheriff's deputies, who appear to not have been trained very well, decide to respond at the scene. And this is where things fall apart. These deputies approach this apartment in the middle of the night. Ezy10Bandz is inside, and of course, this is Texas. She has a firearm. She's legally armed. Ebony starts to hear some commotion going on outside the front porch area near the front door. So she's armed, afraid somebody else might be trying to come in. So what does she do? Let's watch the body camera footage. These deputies open fire. And I don't mean just a few shots. They literally unload multiple clips, over 40 rounds, through the door and through the window. And I need you to think about this for a second. She was inside a home she had every right to be in. She was holding a firearm she had a right to hold. She was posing no threat to those officers.
Right.
At no time did she point the actual weapon at the officers. And the officers were behind the door. And during this entire time, the weapon that Miss Pouncey had was pointed to the ground. And put yourself in Ebony's shoes. She didn't even know these people outside her front door were deputies. For all she knew, they were a bunch of people trying to make their way into the house and take everything they have. Now, why does this case matter, even though it took place 2 years ago? Because right now, Ben Crump, who has also represented everybody from Breonna Taylor's family, George Floyd, Trayvon Martin's family, he is the same attorney, civil rights lawyer, who is on this.
Wait, what attorney was that?
Ben Crump, who is also represented. For all she knew, they were a bunch of people trying to make their way into the house and take everything they have. Now, why does this case matter, even though it took place 2 years ago? Because right now, Ben Crump, who has also represented everybody from Breonna Taylor's family, George Floyd, Trayvon Martin's family, he is the same attorney, civil rights lawyer, who is on this case, and this is actually going on right now for this lawsuit against these deputies. Here's what he said. Ebony was lawfully inside her friend's apartment, posed no threat, and never had the chance to understand what was happening before she was shot 5 times. And even though millions of you asked the question in the comments, can you shoot back? I want to be real clear here, and I want you to listen to me. You're actually asking the wrong question. And by the end of this video, I'm going to
So it seemed like to me, the police was scared. Y'all scary. You think somebody's in there with a gun. It's 2 of y'all. And y'all got 40 rounds. Knock on the door first. You know what I mean? And do a little bit of investigation. Scary ass. Scary as hell. That's crazy. Y'all got the vest on. You know what I mean? Y'all got backup. You know what I mean? Got the walkie-talkies. Got the heat. And can't. And still scared.
Tell you why it's the wrong question, and I'm going to replace it with the correct question you should be asking that will actually save your life if you're in Ebony's situation. But first, what does the law say about this whole thing? The good news is the law is actually on your side. Because this happened in Texas, let's look at the Texas Penal Code on this. Texas Penal Code Section 9.31. Texas law says if you have the right to use force against another person when you reasonably believe force is immediately necessary to protect yourself against the other person's use or attempted use of unlawful force.
Okay.
Did you catch that? It says another person. Right. Not another person unless they have a badge. Not another person unless they're wearing a uniform.
So we can both.
Another person, period. Now let's go further. Section 9.32, under deadly force, Texas says you're justified in using deadly force when you reasonably believe it's immediately necessary to protect yourself against another person's use or attempted use of unlawful deadly force. So, Section 9.31 deals with self-defense. Section 9.32 talks about the use of deadly force. But now let's talk about the Castle Doctrine, because in Texas, you've always got the Castle Doctrine to fall back on. Under Section 9.41 and 9.42, this is where the law gets powerful. If you are inside your habitation, inside your home, your apartment, the place where you live, Texas law presumes that your use of force was reasonable. The law doesn't ask you to prove you were scared. It doesn't ask you to prove that the threat was real. It presumes that it was. Now, let's apply every one of those single statutes to Ebony Pouncey. She was inside a habitation, so the Castle Doctrine applies. She reasonably believed someone was breaking in because she saw that the window was just broken a few moments ago. She was armed, which is legal in Texas, and she had no way to know that these were police officers.
Right.
It was 2 a.m. And the cops really screwed this up because they never announced who they even were. They were literally at the front door, back into the entryway, and they never announced who they were or what they were about to do before they unloaded 40 rounds into the front door and window. Under Texas law, on paper, Ebony Pouncey had every right to defend herself in this situation. In fact, the Castle Doctrine was built for exactly this situation. So the law protects you, right? Well, let me show you the case that proves it. March 13th, 2020, Louisville, Kentucky, just after midnight. Kenneth Walker is a licensed gun owner. He's in bed with his girlfriend, Breonna Taylor. Plainclothes officers execute a no-knock warrant on their apartment. No uniforms, no marked cars, after midnight. They then use a battering ram to smash through the front door. Kenneth Walker then does what any lawful gun owner would do in anywhere in America. He grabs his gun, trying to defend himself and his girlfriend, and he fires one shot. He hits Sergeant Jonathan Mattingly in the leg. The police then return fire, over 30 rounds, and tragically Breonna Taylor is killed. And then Kenneth Walker is charged with attempted murder of a police officer. Attempted murder. For defending himself and his girlfriend from unidentified assailants breaking into their home after midnight.
See, I heard about the Breonna Taylor thing. I think we all have, but I didn't know that her boyfriend, you know what I'm saying, got hit with attempted murder and he got a cop in the leg. That's crazy. So they just breaking into anybody's house, you know what I mean, for no reason. I mean, it ain't like they had a warrant or anything, because that was the wrong house altogether when that happened. You know what I mean?
But as some of you may know, what happened next is that the charges against Mr. Walker were dropped. The court agreed that Mr. Walker had a legitimate self-defense claim. And unfortunately, I can't show you body camera footage of what happened there because those officers, when they showed up, decided not to have or wear their body camera footage so that we know what really fully took place.
You know what I mean?
Kenneth Walker walked free, and he later sued under Kentucky's Stand Your Ground law. So the system worked, right? A citizen can use deadly force against a police officer who is acting unlawfully and posing an immediate threat to them. I mean, is that the new standard we can pull from here? The Castle Doctrine works. Self-defense works. The system works. Except not for everyone. Because what I'm about to show you next is going to make you furious. Killeen, Texas, May 2014, 5:45 in the morning. A SWAT team executes a no-knock raid on Marvin Guy's home. They throw a flashbang grenade through Marvin's window. They smash through the window, and it's...
They flashbanging? Flashbanging. Wow. What you say on a no-knock warrant? What was it said again? Flash banging down. You got to have grenades and everything to be ready for these folks.
It's before dawn, and it startles Marvin Guy because a flashbang grenade just went off in his bedroom, so he gets up and he fires a shot with his weapon. The bullet hits and takes the life of Detective Charles Dinwiddie. Same situation as Kenneth Walker. Same legal argument. Self-defense. Castle doctrine. Didn't know they were police, woken from sleep by an explosion, and defended his home. But Marvin Guy was charged with capital murder. Not attempted murder, but capital murder. The kind of murder that carries the death penalty in Texas. Marvin Guy sat in a jail cell for 9 years before his case ever went to trial. 9 years. No conviction. No plea. Just sitting in a jail cell. And in
That's crazy. Your boy doing 9 years and they got the laws? The laws that says he can stand his ground? You know what I mean? The laws is out the window. That's what I'm saying. That law stuff just a piece of paper. He did 9 years before trial. Do you think if that happened to me and they accidentally came up in here, started blasting, and I started get the busing back, I'm going to take this, call the police, let them come handcuff me, and go sit and go lay down for 9 years. You crazy in hell. I'm going to get the busing and get the burying. I ain't doing all that extra stuff. I ain't about to take no chance. Crazy.
In 2023, he was convicted of murder. But if that's not enough, let me tell you about Hank McGee. Burleson County, Texas, 2013. 1 year before Marvin Guy, a no-knock raid took place where officers broke into the home of Henry McGee. Marvin grabbed a .308 rifle and shot and ended the life of a local deputy. But get this, same state as Marvin Guy. It's in Texas. Castle doctrine is alive and well. Same self-defense claim. I didn't know they were police, and they broke into my home. But a grand jury no-billed him. And if you don't know what that means, it means a grand jury of our peers sat there, listened to the evidence, and said, nah, there's not even enough evidence here to move forward with a case. Henry McGee walked out of that courthouse as a free man. Same state, same law, same castle doctrine, same self-defense, and same facts. A man in his own home defended himself from officers not announcing and forcing their way into his home.
Okay. Well, at least it worked for old dude. But still, man, old dude, you know what I mean? Marvin, he did 9 years and they sentenced him? Capital murder? What's crazy is, that's crazy, man. That's wild. I can't put my faith in the judicial system. You know what I'm saying? In the law, and none of that. I don't trust none of that. I ain't going out like that. So you think I'm gonna sit in jail and hope y'all treat me fairly? Wow. Nah, that ain't happening, dog. I'd rather go on and put you in the ground, put everybody in the ground, come through, here on out. Like that one little skit I seen where you just started smacking everybody at the grill out. Nah, that ain't happening.
The difference? Some civil rights advocates argue the only real difference was race. Marvin Guy is black. He got capital murder charges and 9 years in a jail cell. Hank McGee is white. Under the same set of circumstances, somehow he ends up walking free. Therein lies the problem with answering this question, can you fire back at a police officer who is unlawfully firing at you? When you do a thorough investigation into this, you'll find that the law is actually not the problem on paper, because on paper it protects all of us equally. The Castle Doctrine doesn't have exceptions. It doesn't have a race exception. It doesn't have an exception if you live in a different county in Texas compared to another county in Texas. Section 9.31 doesn't have a footnote that says the prosecutor in Killeen, Texas gets to interpret this law differently than those in Burleson County, Texas. The problem is not the law, it's the system and the prosecutors that apply the law. The prosecutor decides what charges to file. The grand jury only hears what the prosecutor gives them because most of these grand jury proceedings are closed and they're secretive. So if not everything is truly transparent to the grand jury, then many times the grand jury may not have even been given an opportunity to no-bill a case. You see, the law gave Marvin Guy and Hank McGee the exact same shield. The problem is, depending upon where you live, and yes, sometimes your skin color, it may not be that the law is applied equally in every situation. But I haven't even told you the most important part yet, because so far we've only covered what happens to the citizen if they decide to shoot back. But what happens to the officers who decide to shoot 40 rounds into a door of a woman in an apartment who had every right to be there? This brings me back to Ezy10Bandz. 5 bullet wounds, permanent nerve damage, drop foot, which means she'll never be able to walk the same way ever again. What happened to those 2 deputies who fired 40 rounds? Administrative leave. That's it. No criminal charges, not even an indictment. They fired 40 rounds at an innocent woman in a home she had a right to be in, and the police just said, oh, just take some time off. Which is precisely why Ben Crump filed a federal lawsuit on June 3rd, 2025, and it's still in litigation right now. And listen to what the lawsuit alleges, because this is the key to everything. This is not just about 2 deputies. It's about a department that trained them to respond with violence instead of restraint. The lawsuit directly quotes the...
I mean, I don't think it's that. I think it's they scary. They were scared. When you scared, you would bust from way over here. You know what I mean? When you scared, you ain't gonna go up and ask them questions and do all that. I mean, you know what I mean? I think they were scared. Now somebody need to pay for sure. Definitely the department should pay because in the city because they just gave them boys a slap on the wrist for busting 30 rounds. You too scared to be the police, man. You need to go home. You need to be the you know what I mean, the ice cream man or something, janitor. You know what I mean? Yeah, you can't be the fireman. Scared of the fire.
Standard for what is allowed by police officers when they administer deadly force, and that's the case known as Graham versus Connor. This 1989 Supreme Court case established what was known as the objective reasonableness standard for police use of force. This case establishes that a police officer must have an objective reasonable belief that they are in fear of serious bodily injury or death because of the actions of the other individual. It's not just I felt scared, it's what would a reasonable officer objectively have believed if they were in the same situation. And that's the real question here. Would a reasonable officer have fired 40 rounds through a window and a door at a person they had not identified in response to a burglary call at an apartment where the actual resident broke her own window? You see, Ezy10Bandz's lawsuit doesn't just seek monetary damages, she seeks for those law enforcement officers to never be able to wear a badge again. And why is that? Because it's more of a product of the terrible training and the people that are being hired to actually police our streets. Which brings me to a case that I remember.
How do you bust? I mean, I'm glad she alive. But how do you pop off 40 rounds 5 feet away from the person through a window and you only hit 5 times in the legs? And 40 rounds and they still walking. You 5 feet away. Yeah, you don't need you don't need to be the police, dog. Nah, Y'all be, you know what I'm saying, y'all work for the city. You know what I mean? Y'all could be you know, unarmed security guards, maybe that. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Coin holster full of quarters so you can call the police if things get really nasty. But this right here, nah, you don't need to have a gun in hand.
Reminded of, known as the Acorn Cop. Okaloosa County, Florida. A deputy heard an acorn hit the roof of his patrol car and started shooting at his own vehicle with a handcuffed, unarmed suspect sitting inside. He thought it was a gunfire, but it was an acorn. Think about this. You literally can't make this stuff up. Now that officer was smart enough to resign, but think about this. That is the level of training, the level of composure, the level of...
We got to back that up, man, because you ain't going to sit here and talk about no Acorn Cop. What does that have to do with anything anyway? But I don't know. But smart enough to resign. Acorn Cop. That's crazy.
Terrible training and the people that are being hired to actually police our streets. Which brings me to a case that I'm reminded of, known as the Acorn Cop. Okaloosa County, Florida. A deputy heard an acorn hit the roof of his patrol car and started shooting at his own vehicle with a handcuffed, unarmed suspect sitting inside. He thought it was a gunfire, but it was an acorn. Think about this. You literally can't make this stuff up. Now that officer was smart enough to resign. But think about this. That is the level...
This man scared of squirrels. That's crazy. You know what I mean? Squirrels attacking the police, and the police get to busting. Damn.
of training, the level of composure, the level of judgment that some of these officers are bringing to life and death situations. Which brings me to this. I told you at the beginning of this video that many people are asking the wrong question. Now I'm going to give you the question and the answer. Can you legally shoot back at the police when they unlawfully shoot at you? Legally, the answer is yes. If you are in your home and you don't know who's coming through that door as the police and they didn't announce themselves and you are in reasonable fear of serious bodily injury or death, you absolutely can use and take lethal measures to protect yourself. You have that right. Kenneth Walker proved it. The Castle Doctrine says it. But that is the wrong question. Why? The right question is what happens after you exercise that right. Because here are the 5 realities cops don't want you to know. Number 1, you might not survive the encounter. Ezy10Bandz didn't even shoot back and she took 5 bullets. Breonna Taylor didn't fire a single shot and she is no longer alive. If you ever return fire at a police officer, the odds of you surviving that encounter drop to very low. Unfortunately, you cannot exercise your legal rights from a casket. Number 2, even if you survive, you will still be arrested. Kenneth Walker was arrested and charged with attempted murder. Marvin Guy was charged with capital murder. The self-defense argument only comes later after you've been arrested, booked, put in a cell, and had to bond out. Number 3, your freedom can depend on your zip code and maybe even your skin color. Hank McGee, he walked free in Burleson County, but Marvin Guy, convicted in Killeen. Same state, same law, different outcome. And number 4, many times the officers who shot back will not face any consequences. Pouncey's deputies, administrative leave, no charges. The system investigates itself and finds itself not guilty. That is often the pattern, and unfortunately it's the norm. And number 5, the civil case that you would bring against those officers in the city would take years and years to resolve. Kenneth Walker's case took years. Marvin Guy sat in a jail cell for 9 years. And even if you win, you lose time, money, peace of mind, and a piece of yourself you never get back. This is the real tragedy of what happens. And even if you are able to attain a large civil rights lawsuit settlement, it doesn't stop the cops from doing it. It only comes out of taxpayer money. So what is your real weapon here? Unfortunately, it's not always the gun in your nightstand. It's the camera sitting on your phone. The real weapon is the truth, documented and preserved before the system can bury it. Everyone here should have a security system trained on that front door. And if you need some sort of camera...
Yeah, security system, but the phone camera, man, you can't just hold up the phone camera while somebody busting 40 rounds at you. Nah, You say get your security camera, yeah, but I'd invest in a banana clip, 100-round drum or something, because we holding court in the streets. Because I ain't taking no chances on none of these laws having my back. For sure, that. Believe that.
If they make it inside of your home, you should record and do the best you can to have something triggered on that front door so that if someone makes it into your home, it will be documented that what took place here was not something you did wrong, like some of these other poor stories we just looked at, but it was the police failing to follow proper training and putting you in harm's way. There's a reason Ezy10Bandz story went viral. There's a reason Ben Crump took that case and the video had millions of views. The body camera footage was Miss Pouncey's weapon. And it's going to serve her well when she makes sure that Harris County pays for what they did.
Alright, so that's what it is. Yeah, I mean, y'all heard it here first. I don't really know what the answer is. But all I know is, from what I get out of everything, if the police start busting at me, I'm busting back. And we holding court in the street, because I ain't going sitting in no jail for no 9 years to do nobody's motherfucking waiting on somebody to come save me. You know what I'm saying? So they can argue in court over something and in the end do what they decide they want to do. Because I don't trust nothing, especially no words written in no book to my law. Because you already see what the government doing right now, whatever they want. So it ain't happening. You know what I mean? That's one for the books. Ezy10Bandz in the building. You know what I mean? Y'all come check it out. Subscribe. You know what it is. I was scheming back when devil had a demon. Dreaming back when Daisy had a dose. Steaming when my partner broke the agreement. Fiending back when Dolo had the juice. Drinking when I didn't have a meaning. LinkedIn back when I ain't have a roof. Money that we blew. Told me it was do or die, don't know how you knew. Out here running suicides, do it for the troops. Got a lot of Fetty wives watching how I move.